So this is kind of a follow-up to yesterday's video. I made a video on growth. I was kind of going over some progress I've made in my life. And then I got like super distracted by stuff. So I didn't really completely talk about everything I wanted to talk about in that video. So this is kind of just a follow-up to that video. Anyway, one of the things I've been really struggling working on lately is just learning how to not let what other people think about me bother me as much, because I know it's impossible to kind of not want to know what people think of you, but I'm trying not to let it bother me too much, you know what I mean? I want to be able to have fun and be who I am and feel how I feel without caring about what Tommy Joe over there is thinking, you know? And it's not always easy. I've been doing better to some degree. Like, if I'm rocking out in my car, singing along to the music in my car, I don't get as self-conscious about it. Usually I get really nervous when I see another person staring or something, and it kind of ruins my mood and takes me out of the music a little bit. This van has an AI-generated version of a Mr. Monopoly Man for a plumbing company. Interesting. I'm going to be seeing that a lot more lately anymore. A lot of companies and businesses aren't going to want to pay artists to make their business banners and stuff anymore. Kind of sad. Anyway, that's not the point in this video. That's just me and my ADD getting distracted. Speaking of ADD, I did finally get diagnosed. So now when I make jokes about having ADHD or something, I'm not technically lying anymore. I have ADD. I need to ask my therapist what the difference between ADHD and ADD is, or maybe just Google it. Ooh, 65 Mustang. Just because I'm curious why I have ADD and not ADHD. I don't know if they're the same thing and they're just differently diagnosed or something, different symptoms or something. I don't know. But I'm kind of curious why one not the other. So I'll have to ask about that. So that was cool. Getting to have things explained to you, why you think and feel and act and stuff the way you are, helps a lot. It's helped me a lot. I was diagnosed with long-term depression back in 2020. So just knowing that this stuff wasn't all in my head, because people like to tell you just have to think better. It's mind over matter. Just flip the switch in your brain and you'll start thinking better and whatnot. And it's I don't think so. So to have it finally basically confirmed that you're struggling with something, it's a huge relief. Actually, it doesn't change my attitude per se, but it does help. It's kind of like, how if you're working on a project and you're struggling to figure out why something doesn't work, and you finally find that line of code or something, and it finally works. It's kind of like that. That's how I felt when I finally got the diagnosis. Is it diagnosis or diagnosis? Diagnosis, is that plural? Or is that just a character from the Odyssey? But no, it was a big help, because you can, at least for me, I feel like I can better cope and learn strategies to cope when I know what I'm dealing with, If you don't know why your nose is running all the time, you're going to have a hard time figuring out how to make sure you no longer have a runny nose. If you find out, well, hell, I have sinusitis, you can work on that. You can go to the doctor. If the doctor's the one that figured it out, you can get on medication and stuff to help you deal with that sinusitis. Like, so having something confirmed so I can start working on that, bettering myself, part of that whole growth process, it was a big relief. So now that I know I have ADD, and that explains some of my inabilities, what was I saying? But no, having something confirmed helped a lot. Now, my next step is I have an intake exam in a couple weeks with a clinic to get tested for autism. It's just the intake though, so apparently this clinic has a wait list and it's months out. So I have an intake exam just to become a patient, and then I gotta wait months to get the exam. So that kind of makes me a little nervous, but also a little frustrated at the same time. But see, this is part of the stuff that I've been learning how to cope with, like my depression, because it does depress me a little bit that it's going to take so long for me to get to this. But one of the coping strategies that I was able to figure out is I've been waiting this long to figure out if I'm actually autistic or not. What's a few more months, right? And that's just something I've had to remind myself to make myself not be as upset about that fact, because it is upsetting. Healthcare system in America is kind of whack right now. So to have to wait kind of sucks. But on the same hand, I understand there's a lack of doctors, and even on that, there's a lack of doctors who are knowledgeable on this subject. So if I'm going to have to wait, I'm going to have to wait. That's just how it's going to be. So again, my coping phrase that I've been using is, you've waited this long, what's a few more months? I remember ordering something a few years ago, and it was from one of those places where, they don't do like overnight and stuff. So I think it was like 8 to 10 weeks delivery. I ordered it and I'm like, okay, well, 8 to 10 weeks is a long time. I don't understand why it takes that long, but this is what I'm about to sign up for here. I'm going to just have to wait the 8 to 10 weeks. I think it was like week 9. I might be misremembering this. This was a long time ago, so the details are fuzzy, I'll admit. I think it was like week 9 or something, though. I did get an email that's like, hey, sorry, we're going to be delayed another couple weeks, but it is coming. And I did end up getting it. But I remember being so frustrated getting that email, because I'm like, I already had to wait 8 to 10 weeks for this damn thing. My money's already been taken out of my account, and now you're telling me it's going to take an extra couple weeks to get my stuff? Like, that's beyond frustrating. And, just learning over time, shit happens. Maybe the manufacturer they were using to make the product or something had problems, or they went up in flames and had to find another manufacturer. Things happen. Does it suck that my money was already gone and I had to wait longer? Yes. Would it have sucked even more if the product would have never gotten to me and my money was already taken, and I would have had to work and get frustrated with having to get my money back? Yes. But it didn't come to that, so small price to pay. Patience is key too. Patience is something that I've been really working on with my growth. I get so impatient, and it's a problem, and I've been struggling with it for a long time. Funnily enough, when we played basketball in high school, our coach, for some reason, gave all the players jerseys, practice jerseys with virtues on the back, because it was a Catholic school. And I don't know, I think they thought that would be creative something, and my virtue was patience. Everybody was trying to tell me, be patient, like, stop being so hasty. And I don't know, it's funny, because that's just something I've struggled with most of my life, is patience. My patience runs thin a lot. Nothing like getting told that a mistake was made and this person's frustrated about that mistake, and then remembering that this person that's frustrated about this mistake, openly, verbally vocalizing it, is constantly making mistakes. And it does have a little bit to do with patience, because it's like, just, sometimes you just gotta let it happen. Let them be the bigger person, because deep in your heart of hearts that you're doing what you can, and you understand that sometimes you make a mistake or two, and this other person is constantly making mistakes, constantly, and there's nothing you can really do about it. So just be patient, let it happen, keep doing what you can to do the best you can do, and not let it get to you too much. Doesn't mean it doesn't. It gets to me a lot. I can't really use a good example because it's all related to work, and I don't want to tip that boat. But I completely sit with the fact that yes, it is really hard to just be patient and let somebody feel like they have the upper hand, because it is a constant battle. It is what it is. That's another thing that's part of the growth too, is just sometimes you just gotta let the other person think they're right. Let them have it, It's something my old boss, when I worked security at the mall, used to teach me, is you have to pick your battles. You can't fight everything that comes your way. One of the things I'm guilty of, or what was guilty of when I used to work security, is, don't get me wrong, it still bothers me to this day, but I have a different mindset and approach with it. But when I used to work security, one thing I used to do a lot when I worked at the mall is write double parking and non-handicap placard tickets. They weren't really tickets, they were warnings. We didn't really do anything with them anyway. If it got really bad, we would call the tow truck, but it just really depended on what the supervisor wanted us, or the manager wanted us to do, and he's the one that kind of taught me to pick your battles. So it was rare that we really had to actually call the tow truck, but I was still writing a lot of those warnings. And anytime I'd find somebody who double parked, anytime I would find somebody in a handicap zone that didn't have their handicap placard anywhere visible, I would write a warning. And one day he pulled me into the office and he's like, "Hey Mark, what good do you think it is to constantly write warnings for people for double parking?" I'm like, well, they're making it hard for other people coming to the store to find good parking, especially when we're really busy, and if they're double parking, they're taking up that one parking space that somebody else needed it can no longer get. And with the handicap, it's well, if you're not handicapped, you shouldn't be in the handicap zone. And handicapped people would probably agree. It's all right, but have you ever thought about it a different way? And I'm like, what do you mean? It's well, you got to pick your battles. With the people that are in the handicap spot, what if they just forgot to put their placard up? Are we really going to get on them for making one tiny mistake? And I'm like, well, that's why they're supposed to have their handicap placard, to show that they're handicapped. And it's you've never forgotten anything, ever? I'm like, I guess I've forgotten stuff, yeah. It's okay, so how would you feel if every time you forgot something, somebody was on your ass about it, telling you this and this and this about it? I'm like, I guess I wouldn't feel that good. He's like, right, okay, so pick your battles, right? I'm like, I guess. this isn't note for note the conversation we had, by the way. I'm kind of verbatim here. And then he asked me about the double parking. Is it really that big of a deal if somebody double parks? I'm like, well, yeah, because they're taking away somebody else's parking spot. And he's like, we still have like hundreds of parking spots. I've never seen this parking lot completely full. I'm like, yeah, but... And he's like, yeah, but what? Like, it is what it is. It happens. If there was a whole row of people double parked, I'd probably understand it a bit better. But if it's here and there and far and few between, it doesn't really matter. Pick your battles. Like, oh, okay. You know, I didn't realize what he was trying to instill in me. I owe that man dinner. I need to go talk to him one of these days and see if he'll let me buy him dinner. He still works there, I think. I didn't realize at the time how important this message was and how it translated to more than just doing stuff at the mall, you know, because like one of the things he also said is you don't have to go up to every person in the mall that's sitting on the planters and tell them to get off the planters. Like, it doesn't have to be everything you see. And I don't know, maybe it was just because I was taught that when you're hired to do a job, you do your job 100%. And maybe that's why it was so difficult for me to accept that. Because I was taught to have good work ethic, you know, and I was trained and taught that's what I'm supposed to do, so that's what I did. And he was the first person to ever really like give me that perspective, you know, and I didn't recognize it at first. I still every once in a while would accidentally or even on purpose write somebody a warning. Not as often, but I did do it. And then later on, much later on, 5-6 years later, I finally realized the importance of that. You know, because if you were to fight every single person that you road rage against, anybody who cuts you off in traffic, eventually one of those motherfuckers is going to pull out a shotgun and shoot you in the face. So pick your battles. You don't have to honk and cuss and what have you at every single person that makes your day miserable. Does it make them any better? No. It doesn't take away the fact that some people are just airheads, but why stoop to their level, you know? So you gotta pick your battles, and I've been really working on that, because I don't want to say it's PTSD, because it's definitely not PTSD, but it's like some sort of work thing with that, where sometimes it's hard to understand that sometimes when people give you criticism, it's not necessarily from a place of maliciousness. Sometimes it is, but not all the time. And so that's something I've been working on, where I'm just kind of like, okay, all right, okay, you know, pick your battles. I don't know, there's just a lot that I'm working on, struggling with, but working on. Accepting that. Another thing I really struggle with is I'm pretty communicative. I like having conversations with people, and especially people that are my friends or I consider valuable to my life. And something I'm still struggling with to this day is just that not everybody is going to be able to talk to you all the time. And it's ironic that I even have to think about that, because I don't want to talk to everybody all the time. You know what I mean? Like, I genuinely like having conversations with people, but I don't always want to do that. Sometimes I just want me time, you know? And then on top of that, when I'm at work, most of the day I don't really text. I can here and there if I want to, but, you know, I just get so busy with work that I just can't text anyways. So, you know, that kind of is something I have to remember, is it's not just me. Some of my friends and people I talk to, they work too, and they probably don't text at work, and, you know, that's just something I have to get used to. I have one friend, I love her to death. She works with animals, and it's like, I would love to talk to her more often because she's a lot of fun to talk to, but I really only hear from her once a week, and I just have to accept that, and that's fine. But it can be hard because when somebody works with something that can be dangerous, you worry, and I worry about her. Once a week seems like a lot, but in reality, it's just her being busy with her job, and that's just something I have to live with, as the cool kids would say, womp womp. And then I have certain people. I have a really bad habit, really bad habit. If I haven't heard from somebody for, like, let's say a month or two, I tend to delete their contact. I don't know why I do this. I feel like half the time it's just because I'm probably never going to hear from that person again. 90% of the time that's true. There have been a few people's contacts I deleted because I don't hear from them, and I just never hear from them again. But there are a few people that just only text me, like, maybe once or twice a year. And then I feel bad when I say, like, well, who is this? I don't have your number. And they're like, oh, it's so-and-so. And I'm like, oh, hey, sorry. And I'll always lie. I'll say, I got a new phone, lost your number. And I know they know. And I feel bad because it's like they have enough kindness to talk to me once or twice a year. Just means their life is busy, and that's not something I should really fault them for. It is tough because another reason I do this is because I'm fairly organized. I like routine in a sense, so like I don't want people really in my contacts list that I'm not talking with, if that makes sense. It's weird to me have people in your contact book you don't talk to. Is what it is. But I don't know, man. I'm still working on a lot. I might make a follow-up video to this at some point. I definitely owe you one when I finally get the intake exam and then taking the actual test. That'll be maybe like an update video. Not that these videos are really getting much traction, and that's fine. I saw one of the YouTubers I watch here and there goes by Some Ordinary Gamer, and he was talking about Graphene OS the other day, and he said something that kind of resonated with me. I feel the same exact way with these videos, is if I can get even one person to watch and listen to what I'm saying, to even start thinking about life and how we interact with it, then I've succeeded, If only one person has ever watched all my videos and they take what I'm saying and think, like, I want to explain something. When I tell my perspective on the world and what I've dealt with, I'm not saying that the perspective you should come out with is the same as mine. That's not what I want at all for people to get from my videos. I do want to challenge how they think about the world and what they believe and what they think and feel and the people they interact with and how they interact with them. I want people to be able to understand life is not black and white. Stop looking at life through rose-colored glasses, open up to the idea that people are different than you and you're just going to have to accept it. This is what I want from these videos, is people to think. Some of the stuff that I believe and feel could be completely wrong. I know there's stuff that I believe in myself that I might make a video on later that I do believe, but I could still be wrong about that, and that's okay, because that's being human, that's learning, that's discovering. You're allowed to have an opinion. What you're not allowed to do is take that opinion and hurt people with it. And I think that's another thing I try to want to do with my videos, make people recognize that the people they might vilify aren't necessarily as bad as they think they are. Like, I'm not saying that there's not bad people, but like my grandpa always told me, there's good and bad in everything and everybody. And that's just something that people should take to heart. Good and bad in everything and everybody. There are absolutely bad people within the LGBTQ plus community, but is it okay to state because there's one or two people that are bad, we should vilify the rest of the community? No. It's like, it's the same way people think about with police, because they're like, well, there's only maybe 3 or 4 cops that do bad things. We shouldn't look at the rest of the community in a bad light. It's like, okay, so why can't you use that same logic for anyone else? Like, are there illegal immigrants that come in here and do bad things? Yes, there are. But again, I want to reiterate, there is good and bad in everything and everybody. And because I know somebody's probably going to ask, do I trust cops? I don't. And it's not because I'm hugely ACAB or anything. It's because I don't see enough people calling them out. I don't see their own calling each other out. Like, until that starts happening and cops actually start facing repercussions for the bad things they do, I cannot trust cops. And that is how it is. That's a growth that I've had too, is I've learned to accept that I need to be able to hold people accountable. And that means anyone. I need to be able to hold myself accountable. We should be able to hold each other accountable if we do things wrong. And to some degree, depending on what it is, I think everyone should be able to get a second chance. To some degree. I think there is nuance to that, and that's another thing I like to harp on, is life has nuances. So not everything probably deserves a second chance. If you straight up first degree murdered somebody, I don't know if that really deserves a second chance. Now, if you accidentally killed somebody and the situation was just one of those situations, like very specific, that's probably one where it's like, are we really going to lock you up for the rest of your life? Like in true cases of self-defense, maybe. That's another subject for another time. I'm not going to get too much into that. I'm kind of ranting, tangential right now. I do that. If you've seen any of my videos, you'll understand that that's just something I do. Alright, well, that's it. I might make a follow-up later. More growth stuff. There's always growing to go.